All right, new video today. So got a lot of views yesterday, so I was inspired to make today's a lot better. And I got quantum leap forward. The camera is not the front facing camera, so you can actually read things the correct way now, and also a really bright light that's blinding me. Downside to this though is I cannot see where I am. I just hope I'm in frame, and I don't have a 10-minute timer, so I'm just gonna have to look at it every once in a while. Anyways, today I want to talk about the life of a business. So every business is like a person is different. There's no two that are the same in the way that they're created, why they exist, or any of the other things. And there's infinite reasons why a business exists, and they all exist for different purposes, like I said. So the way I like to think of businesses is I think of them as if they were a living entity, like a person. Well, obviously a person because you have to be capable of thinking and all that stuff. Anyways, I like to think of them as a person. If you gave birth to a business, let's say me to my restaurants, I am the founder, and that's kind of like the parents. So when a business opens, the number one goal of it is to survive. It should try to feed itself. It should be able to function on its own. Its main goal, like a person, I assume, is to not die. So self-preservation is number one. Second on the list of its main goals is to keep the parents alive, and then from there the family, and then last is society and customers, which is like the friends. So the main purpose of a restaurant to me is, well, let's say for a restaurant, for example, main purpose is to keep itself alive, then it's to feed the parents who are the founders, and then the friends and family. Now, not directly like feed, but you know what I mean. Yeah, I think the ethics of a business also come out of the ethics of the parents. So the ethics of how a business runs is reflective of how a business owner starts. So even though like I own my restaurants, it doesn't necessarily mean that the ethics and how the business operates and the why and all that is a direct correlation to what I put into it. It's very closely related, but there's other people like the family and the friends, which is like my employees and the customers, everyone that has anything to do with the business, kind of help it shape it to what it is. But obviously your parents have a big influence of why you are the way you are, how you think about ethics and morals, and so what these things, my logic is for how a business would function is its goal is to do the most good long term versus immediate. So Tesla, for example, if they raise the prices on their cars, does it benefit the customer, that customer who has to pay more? No, because they have to pay $5,000 more. But if it creates more money to sustain Tesla, then Tesla can reinvest it. And if you had to put a number on it, they could turn that $5,000 into $100,000 10 years down the line. So in that regard, it creates more value for society as a whole in the long term. Also, I drew a really nice thumb over here. This is the first time I'm going to ask people to like. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe yet. Let's start with like. When we can get this going, then we'll move on to the more complicated one. So yeah, that's my view of how I look at a business. So I'm gonna go over my personal business and what I think now, because like I said, every business is different. So when I think about self-preservation, it's very clean and clear to me that if you like every decision that you have to make, it starts with the bottom tier of the hierarchy of needs, which is to feed and feed itself basically. So if the restaurant started to lose a lot of money, I would cut, would have to save money obviously. If you can't create more, like you can't bring more customers by default, the only other way is to reduce your costs, and you have to take away from somebody. And most of the times you would take away from the farthest person away from yourself. So it would be the friends first, and then you take away from the family, and then you take away from the parents. So you raise prices. That's how you offset that. If raising the prices doesn't do it, or other things, lowers, making the portion size smaller or anything, then you have to start laying off employees and all that stuff. It's not fun to fire people or to cut their hours, but it's a necessity to ensure that the business survives. If so, yeah. And then specific to my business, I don't rely on my business for survival in terms of paying my rent and buying food and all that stuff. So it's kind of, the burden is eased because the business knows that I'm fine. So it only really needs to take care of these two. And that's why a lot of the money in my restaurants flows from here down into here, which then flows back upwards into expanding the business and being able to take care of more family members basically. So all of my employees get paid above the top 1% of their position. Like if you went on Google and you typed in salary of line cook, salary of sous chef, salary of chef de cuisine, whatever position it is in Hawaii, this is the bracket, this is the bottom half, there's a bottom, there's a top. My employees get paid over here. And I think it's due to our unique function of how I run a restaurant that we have that sort of advantage. Because I've talked to a lot of chefs over the years, and they're doing good as an individual person, but they're not making enough for how much work they're putting in my opinion. Because I value my time very much, and I don't know, I guess if it doesn't create a certain amount of wealth or happiness or something for me, I won't do it. And if after 4 years of business I was making $50,000 on top of my own salary of, let's say, $50,000, I don't know if that would be worth it for me to work for $100,000 a year. So yeah, let me check the time. 8:30. So a lot of things that I notice in other businesses, and like everyone has their own opinion, which is like everyone's different. That's just the way it is. My personal opinion on I do give back to the community, but there's a certain line that you have to, like, at what point are you giving too much instead of worrying about the self-preservation of the business? And my logic is, let's say, using organic food or local food or donating to whatever. Like, if you went up to them and you asked, would you rather I donate $1,000 today or $10,000 in 10 years? And obviously you're not going to ask them, but I think you have to ask what they would want if you were to ask them and then you answered and they answered. So my view on this is it should be like a percentage sliding scale. Like if you're not making anything, don't give anything. Like I know a lot of chefs work for basically for free at these fundraiser events where they get a stipend of, let's say, $2 per plate, and then their food cost is like $1.50, and they like prep all day and then bring their whole staff, and they put like 50 to 100 labor hours into this thing, and then they walked out with $500 profit, and that $500 is for the labor. So essentially all of those people got paid, the business got paid for selling all of this labor for $10 an hour, which is obviously lower than they're actually being paid. So they get paid very little, restaurants, and I think that's gonna start shifting the time of a chef, because I know a lot of fundraisers are like oh, we're in tough times and we need donations and that kind of stuff. It's also a tough time for the restaurants. So yeah. Anything else I want to go over? Ethics of a business. So I could go very long on that one, but the basic thing for that one is I'm going to talk about the profits of the restaurant, my restaurant specifically. My main goal for my restaurants is to make money and increase wages in the employees to what I think is a sufficient amount. Currently, I think they're very well paid, and I kind of regret paying them so much because I don't roll back my pay wages. I kind of overextended because we did so well last year, but we're just eating it for now, and they're still getting paid what they get. It's like they get grandfathered into getting paid more. Anyways, they're getting paid enough. So all of the excess cash, since the restaurants opened 4 years ago, I have taken $0 in profit. My first 2 years, when I was working about 80 to 100 hours every day, I paid myself a salary of $50,000, and that's way more than I've ever been paid by anybody else. The most I've been paid by somebody else was $15 an hour, and I think that comes out to like 35K or something. So 35K to 50K. So working 50K for myself for the first 2 years, I was happy, even though I was working so much, because that's, yeah, when a business is like a baby, you just have to sacrifice upfront for it. For the first 18 years of its life, it's about self-preservation. Then it can start, well, not 18 years, but the beginning years, as if it was a person. It would spend the first 18 years being fed by the parents, and then once it finds its own success, it can start helping out the other people in its family. So all the money gets beyond, since I don't need any money, it flows to the employees. Once it fills that bucket of making sure the employees get paid well, all their benefits are covered and all that stuff and whatever, then it goes into opening more restaurants, because the logic is the more restaurants that I can open, the more staff I can take care of. And that's the very fundamental bottom of what we do with profits. There's different things like how we approach creating food and all these other things, but that's basically my idea for the life and function of a business. That should be 10 minutes. See you tomorrow.